So, hockey helps the homeless on Friday, right? Woohoo. Yes, amazing. Actually, this year, Rob and I were commenting about the fact that there were no problems. It just went smoothly. Like, we talked to each other at like 2 o'clock or something like that, and I was like, have you had any problems today? He says, no, I haven't, actually. Sorry?
Well, there was that thing where our speaker had COVID.
Oh, yes. Well, there was that. Yes. So the main speaker that was coming to share her story had COVID. So somebody else got to read her story for her. It was a beautiful job. It was wonderful. It was lovely. And I think in the end, I think the final tally number was just over $140,000. What are we, $23,000 from $1 million from the start? Is that correct? See that? I've got all of my numbers together. Look at that. That's just in Barrie for Busby Center and Redwood Park communities. Pretty amazing. I have to tell you this other story before I get into the most important part, which is today's message. So my dear friend Nathan, he's not a very dear friend sometimes, he made some fairly significant short jokes on my behalf. There was a young gentleman named Cam. Yeah, no, we're standing there. I'm sorry, I'm not letting you off the hook. He's trying to figure out the name of this one young gentleman that was there. His name was Cam, by the way. And Nathan was referencing about the fact that, you know the one that was shorter. Well, he was saying shorter in reference to the guy that was 6'7", not just saying that he was short. He comes walking out of the room, and he's this tall.
No, he's probably taller. I don't think we can reach.
Listen. You shut up back there, because you have no say. You're taller than me in the damn wheelchair, so kiss my ass. Okay? So this guy is this tall. And I looked at Nathan like, really? The short guy? What does that say about me? And then I kicked him. It was fun. So we're talking today about ethics. Because, short jokes and all, ethics. So when I say the word ethics, what does that mean to you? What pops into your head? Morals, right? Homework? Yeah. Bible school for ethics? Oh, there's an ethics course in Bible school. Yeah, there was an ethics course in my law class as well, and law course as well. So the Encyclopedia Britannica says this: ethics is also called moral philosophy, the discipline concerned with what is morally good and bad and morally right and wrong. The term is also applied to any system or theory of moral values or principles. Shut up, Heather. I know you have a better explanation than that, but no. All these master's degree and PhD people. I have Wikipedia. So, closest Hebrew term in the Old Testament for ethics, virtue, or ideals is this word musar. I looked it up. That is how it is pronounced. Discipline or teaching is what that says. Proverbs 1:8 says this: avoid evil associations. Listen, my son, to your father's instructions. Don't neglect your mother's teaching. So I love the fact that that thing opens up with, listen, my son, pay attention to your mom. Because that makes a lot more sense than listening to my teachings. Listen to your mom, she's got to figure it out. Go speak to her. Okay, another word is the Hebrew word derek, and it is pronounced derek. It refers to a road or way, and figuratively refers to a person's course of action. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Closest Greek parallel term in the New Testament is anastrophe. Also, that's how it's pronounced. Way of life, lifestyle. And it just so happens to occur 9 times. In a good sense, with 2 Peter 3:11 being the most significant usage. That's important. Remember that. That's on the test later. No, it's not. Or the Greek term ethos, which appears 12 times in the New Testament and refers to the distinguishing character, sentiment, moral nature, or guiding beliefs of a person, group, or institution. No short jokes, Nathan. Just saying. Anybody guess what today's message is actually about?
Short jokes.
Not short jokes. It's not about short jokes. Sorry, somebody? Jumping the gun, Carrie. Look at this creepy guy. Oh my goodness. It's like if it was like at dusk and it was just a little bit dark and that thing was crawling across the road, not cute.
It's
Not cute.
Freddy Krueger with a really cute face.
It's just, I don't know, they creep me out. I'm jealous of his hair. That was my wife, people. You see what I have to live with? Short jokes and people making fun of my bald head. You people are horrible. I'm moving out. Okay. There's a term in Hebrew. Wow, that was a rabbit. Okay, all right. Take a deep breath. We'll get back on track. It's okay. Slothful, loose, undisciplined. In a Hebrew term that can refer to a bow not strung or equipped with an arrow for action. Like, because an unstrung bow is like the most useless tool that you could, what are you going to do, throw it? You could hit somebody with it, but it's like not overly effective. It's like, Hosea 7:15 and 16. It was I who gave them strength, yet they plot evil against me. They return, but not to the Most High. They have become like a worthless bow. Their officials will fall by the sword because of the rage of their tongues. In Egypt, they will make fun of them. Short jokes. A similar or related Hebrew root describes a loose tongue or mind as deceitful in Micah 6:12. Not you, it's okay. It's all right. You're good to go. I checked, it's in the Bible. In a city whose wealthy are full of violence, not Micah, and whose inhabitants speak falsehood, also not Micah, and lying tongues in their mouth. Interesting. Okay, second Hebrew term refers to that which is difficult, heavy, or hindered, and indicates foolish laziness or sluggishness. Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes 10:18, it says this, through laziness the roof sags, through idle hands the house leaks. Makes sense? So if you don't take care of your roof, it's going to be bad. We are in week 4 of our 7 life-giving practices, and we can tie sloth into the last 3 weeks. I was sitting here last week listening to the 8th, and I was like, oh, I'm so using that. I'm so going to steal that. And I did. We did. But sloth is one of those ones that often people kind of ignore because we're all guilty of it. It's just the reality. Every single person, one of us is, well, maybe not me, but we are very, very guilty of sloth. So we don't like talking about it because it's very hard to, what's that term? Like, it feels like we're being hypocritical. Should not be slothful while I go and sit on the couch, watch too much TV, and eat potato chips, which is what Heather started with. Heather said this, there are many people who are convinced they know why Sodom was destroyed, but their answer is different from Ezekiel's, who tells us that they sinned because they were gluttonous and because they failed to practice hospitality. They failed to be welcoming to those who were different from them. And then moves on, the lack of hospitality. It says on this other thing that Heather wrote down, she says, we overconsume and overindulge all sorts of things to the point of waste. The average Canadian spends 21 hours a week, not me, watching TV, movies, or streaming services, and the average Canadian spends an hour and 46 minutes scrolling social media. Sorry, that's me. Lack of hospitality. What about, instead of saying lack of hospitality, especially in the last one, why don't we say a lack of engagement? I think a lack of engagement makes good sense. And it especially ties into Nathan's first message. Nathan's statistical slide on sex in the evangelical church. You throw that up there. Seriously, people. So we don't engage with others around us, apparently enough, gentlemen. And remember, it says this, and the most common reason that women don't orgasm, lack of foreplay on the part of the husband, and lack of prioritizing pleasure. Lack of prioritizing and engaging in somebody else. And then last week, Nathan spoke about the story around greed. This guy comes to Jesus and he asks, teacher, what good thing must I do to have eternal life? And Jesus said, well, why do you ask? Why do you ask me about what is good? There's only one who is good. If you want to enter eternal life, keep the commandments. And the man says to him, well, which ones? Jesus said, don't commit murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't give false testimony, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. when I first read this, I kind of got the sense the tone was more like, seriously? You should know this. Why are you asking me? Here's the list again, if you weren't paying attention in the first place. And the guy responds, but I've kept all of these. What am I still missing? And Jesus drops the mic and says, if you want to be complete, go sell what you own and give the money to the poor. Then you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. Sometimes giving is not just financial. It's physical as well. And Jesus is telling this dude that he must physically give everything away, and then he can come follow Jesus. The act of following is an act. It's maybe simple, but it's still an action. The act of engagement, because we have to engage with Jesus and we have to engage with those around us before we can actually say that we're followers of Jesus. Giving can be financial, but it can also be very physical. The giving of time and energy has value as well, as we saw in Apocalypse Homeless on Friday. So, if this man was engaging with community, and he claims that he's keeping all of the commandments, well, the commandment that says, love your neighbor as yourself, doesn't really seem like he's following that if he has all these possessions that he's had to give away and to lose, right? Because if he had all these possessions and he was loving his neighbor and all the people around him, then he wouldn't have all those possessions. So he's not fulfilling the commandments that he says that he's fulfilling. Hypocritical. Because it says, when the young man heard this, he went away saddened because he had many possessions. I really think that Jesus is calling out his claim that he's following all the commandments. I really do. It's clearly this man does not love his neighbor as he loves himself. Otherwise, he wouldn't have all the possessions. He would have to give them away. He would have to. So there's actually a passage on engagement, but we never really look at it as a passage on engagement. It's Matthew 25, 35 through 45. Now when the human one, Jesus, comes in his majesty and all his angels are with him, he will sit on his majestic throne. And Jesus says that he will separate the nations right to left, I'm paraphrasing. And those on the right, he will say to this, I was hungry and you gave me food to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothes to wear. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. And then those who are righteous will reply to him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you as a stranger and welcome you, or naked and give you clothes to wear? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And then the king will reply to them, I assure you that when you have done it for me, for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you have done it for me. That's a passage on engagement. But then Jesus goes to talk about the people who don't do that. I was hungry and you didn't give me food to eat. I was thirsty and you didn't give me anything to drink. I was a stranger and you didn't welcome me. I was naked and you didn't give me clothes to wear. I was sick and in prison and you didn't visit me. Then they will reply, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or stranger or naked or sick or in prison and didn't do any of these things to help you? Then he will answer, I assure you that when you haven't done it for one of the least of these, you haven't done it for me. That's a lack of engagement. Jesus is calling out a lack of engagement in our world, and as Christians, we need to pay attention to that, and this passage is very important. Let's focus on a main point here that I want you guys to see, right? Why didn't these people in the second half on the left, why didn't they see these people? Why didn't they see that this was going on, and why didn't they engage with Jesus or with these people? Automatically making it so that he didn't engage with Jesus. What is Jesus claiming here? Right? We've got blinders on, man. Some of us do. We want to make this an active practice that we do every day, engagement as an active practice every day. And I think to follow Jesus, we don't have any choice. See, if we focus on just satisfying ourselves or refuse to engage with our spouse, our kids, our neighbors, the community, the world as a whole, instead we often withdraw into selfish pleasures. We can't claim to follow Jesus like the one guy did. Well, I follow Jesus because I keep all the commandments. No, he didn't. Now, as I was writing this, I kept bumping into, there's not a whole lot of stuff where people talk about this sloth thing, right? And I kept bumping into this whole thing about sloth connecting with depression. And I struggled because I didn't want to bring it up. Sloth is not a symptom of depression. Period. Full stop. I'll talk about making statements. I'm making a statement right there. Sloth is not a symptom of depression. If you are dealing with depression, I am not telling you that you are committing sloth. I will, however, say that if you are dealing with depression right now, engagement with your community might be a good thing. It might help a little bit. But sloth is no. Seasonal affect disorder is currently in full swing. I know over the last several weeks, I have been struggling with it myself to some extent. It's been harder and harder to engage with my community, harder and harder to engage with cleaning the house. It's not committing the sin of sloth. That's just, if you're struggling with depression and this morning you got up and you had a shower, good for you. That's excellent, and I applaud you for that. And I looked it up. The CCD has some ideas about engagement and the concept of depression. It says, acknowledge what's happening and it is okay to feel not okay. Prioritize taking care of yourself. Be mindful of how you're feeling. Maintain connections with others. Seek help from a professional if your sadness becomes overwhelming or feels unmanageable. And all of these things force us to engage with the world around us. And when I mentioned this, sent this off to Nathan mentioned back to me, he says, you should probably say this. You should say, let's be honest, if it works for people struggling with depression, if you're not struggling with depression, imagine how life-giving the act of engagement can be. Oh, Jesus says that to follow him, we must engage with those who are the least of him. I assure you that when you haven't done it for one of the least of these, you haven't done it for me. You see, you can't follow passively, right? If we're following Jesus, it's not a passive action. We have to be able to take a step and move forward and do the things, right? We can't, you can believe in Jesus while sitting on your couch and not being engaged. Yeah, sure, I can believe in Jesus while not engaging with anybody and being part of the community, right? But if I'm going to claim to actually follow Jesus, it's something that you have to actually physically get up and do. To some extent, it takes some sacrifice on our part by being willing to get up and do the things. And I will say that 12 hours at Hockey Helps the Homeless on Friday, my feet are sore. So our next, I'm going to get everybody to come back up for the worship team. Come on up and we'll finish the next song. And I want to leave with this one thing that Heather said to me that I really liked. She says, we're not going to get to the way Jesus wants us to be if Jesus were us, sitting around waiting for it to happen to us. I love that.